We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Supervisor Locke with the invocation.
As we gather for this meeting, we call upon our Creator to be with us and to surround us with people who care and inspire us all to make the right decisions. Amen.
Amen. Supervisor Robel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move for the approval of this evening's amended agenda.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Could you clear and see who's here, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. I don't know what we would do without you, Paul. Widener won't be here. Hamlin won't be here. Are they all taken care of?
When we move into the next phase, it marks them as...
Okay, so who do we... Skellinger won't be here. Finch won't be here. Do we even have a quorum?
Oh, yeah, we've got a quorum. Quorum is 19.
Okay, so what do we got?
We have 30.
They're all set?
Yep.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on anything on the agenda this evening? Now is your time to talk. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on anything on the agenda this evening? That portion of the meeting will be closed. Communications and petitions from the clerk.
I put a memo on everybody's desk. There was a number of the resolutions that got printed without the committee votes on them, so that is on your desk. It should be the top piece of paper. As we get to the resolutions, if you want to refer to that, or else we can let them know. Okay. We have a notice of claim from George Wilcox for damage to his radio and digital ear wrap headphones while an inmate at the county jail, referred to personnel and finance. And that's all.
Reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Friday, January 30th, I attended the Wisconsin Counties Association Judicial and Public Safety Steering Committee meeting in Madison. Presentations were made on the evidence-based decision-making and Wisconsin Access to Justice Commission. Efforts continue to attract the National Institute of Corrections to choose Wisconsin for their pilot project on efforts to coordinate treatment alternatives to incarceration and the deferral of prosecution at the state level. The steering committee voted to recommend support of legislation to migrate to the electronic filing of legal actions so long as it does not impose unfunded mandates upon counties. In a second report, at the invitation of the Wisconsin Counties Association, I attended a workshop entitled A Stronger Together Fox Valley Workshop on Saturday, January 24th at the Goodwill Plaza offices in Menasha. Utilizing the principles of grassroots organizing, the workshop brought together leaders from county and municipal governments, association directors of the Wisconsin Counties Association, Town Association, and Municipal Association, in addition, labor and social and religious groups, to address their common interest in Wisconsin's 2015 executive budget. The community conversation continues on Thursday, February 19th at 5:30 at the Bordini Center of Fox Valley Technical College in Appleton. If you'd like more information on this, feel free to contact me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Warnke.
The Aviation Committee is going to pull Resolution 125-22015. We have to redo some language in it.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just a notice to the supervisors that the Legislative Committee will meet on Monday, February 23rd at 8:30 at the Coughlin Center. So that's Monday, February 23rd.
Okay, thank you. Approval of proceedings from the January 6th and January 20th meeting.
Also moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any additions or corrections on either one of those meetings? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. County Executives Report.
Today I have a really short report. We've been following the state budget proposal, and it's very early in the process. The governor's made his proposal. The legislature will be working on it, and more details will be added over time. We have not been impacted as significantly as some other parties that draw on general purpose revenue, but there are a few things that we've noticed. We will be losing a small amount of nursing home reimbursement based on acuity if the budget stays as it currently stands. There are some changes that may impact us over time with regard to family care districts. The entire state has to now go into family care, which doesn't affect us because we're already in. But the care maintenance organizations may have to change form. So there probably will be a lot of change in the structure and form of Lakeland Family Care District, but some of that still has to be, fleshed out in the details. There also is the possibility that the ADRCs, which is county employees that are kind of like a one-stop shop for helping seniors find out what benefits might be available to them and what help would be available, that may be subject to being bid out to competing interests. It's not. That's also not entirely clear, so it's something we're just keeping an eye on. We believe that some of the increased reimbursements for state highway maintenance did not make it into this budget, so we think that the increased payments we were anticipating may not come through. There's also language in the budget that would make counties responsible for all property assessment in the county. And I think the idea behind it is that the assessments will become more uniform if they're all done by the counties. That would phase in over time if it takes place. And we could potentially basically contract with some of the parties that are already doing it for some of the cities and towns to continue that. But the idea would be that eventually the county would be responsible for the assessments, and there's always a lot of things to be sorted out on that as well. But we're not seeing significant cuts in revenue sharing or any other area that would threaten our ability to operate in our current fashion. But we will be watching these items and any other that come to our attention. I do have one item on the agenda I would stress to support. Resolution 129-22015, and that's to approve a land transfer from the city of Oshkosh to the county. What that is about is when we acquired land for the Aviation Industrial Park, the city agreed to put in a road that would divide that land so that one side was county property and one side was city property. The DNR has asked them to make a small shift in that road, which would leave some of the land that belongs to the city on our side of the road, and the city's willing to just transfer that to the county to clean that up. Now, it's undoubtedly a wetter section of land, but there's no reason why we wouldn't accept that land so that all the property on one side of the road would be the county's property available to be leased and considered on the airport, and all the land on the other side of the road would be land owned by the city that would be available to be sold to aviation-related industries. So, and that's my report.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There are no questions. A few months ago, or 4 or 5 months ago, the Parkview Health Director went to Madison and met with one of the legislatures, and he in turn took us to meet with the governor, and he signed the paper about changing how medications were to be dispensed in a county nursing home. And when that was done back then, it was done for Winnebago County. Now the Department of Corrections is joined on and wants to do the very same thing. I guess what I'm saying is we have some very talented department heads that come up with ideas that do things, so I have to thank her for doing that. And the Parkview director is Morgan Hinckley, so I guess the executive has to look to give her a 4-star or a 5-star rating, you know. And the other thing, I'd like to thank the Sheriff's Department for all the help they did on Lake Winnebago this past couple of weeks with the car dropping in and the father and son that drowned, and it was quite an exciting thing. Not exciting, but it was quite a operation. I ice fish a lot. I went to go out that morning again, but you couldn't get on the lake because of all the emergency vehicles and everything else, and the hovercrafts and the divers and everybody. The thing was all blocked off, but it lasted for an hour and a half or so by the time they got the boy and the father out of the car. But I guess we all think the ice is so safe, but you have to really be careful out there. But I'd like to thank the Sheriff's Department for all their excellent work, what they did on that project. So Sheriff Motz, we're thanking you on behalf of the board. At this time, I would like to ask for your approval of George Shirk for the county board to replace Tim Hamlin. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Supervisor Shirk, I'd like you to come up. Okay, I have to have you repeat after me. I, George Shirk,
I, George Shirk,
have been appointed to the office
have been appointed to the office
of County Board Supervisor,
County Board Supervisor,
District 10,
District 10,
swear that I will support the Constitution
swear that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of
of
Wisconsin,
the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully,
impartially,
and partially discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of said office
of said office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome to our board.
Thank you very much.
George, let's sign this here. Thank you. Welcome aboard. At this time, I'd like to ask Ernie Winters, the Highway Commissioner, to come up, and he's going to give us a presentation on county road, mill, and paved projects for 2015.
Evening, everybody.
You're on.
I put a little handout at everybody's spot tonight. It's a little outline of my discussion, and then there's some pictures that I plagiarized from Google Maps. Can't take credit for those. Kind of show the projects visually, and also there's a little more information then on each one of those pages. This is kind of our backbone work we do in the summer. We plow snow in the winter when there's snow to plow. It's been a little thin this year, I'm not complaining. And then we do pavement maintenance along with many other things, but this is our backbone work that we do each construction season. Given favorable conditions, roadways, I think we mostly all know, they'll last 40 or 50 years if they're well maintained, depending upon traffic and the loads they have to carry, all those types of things. Generally speaking, what I see around the state, our pavements here in Winnebago County are in pretty good shape. Obviously, they do need to be maintained. They need regular work done on them, such as the work I'm going to talk about a little bit this evening. They play an important role in our society here in Winnebago County and our business climate for transportation of people to and from work and recreation and all of those types of things. Well over 1 million vehicle miles are traveled on our system each year, and the county's made a big investment in the system over the years. So each construction season we look at our pavement conditions and we put together a list of pavement maintenance we think we need to do. One of those maintenance activities is milling and paving. We're looking at approximately 10.5 miles of mill and pave this year, split into 5 projects, which are listed on the handout. These projects have all been planned and are listed in the 2015-2019 Capital Improvement Plan. They're going to be milled and or pulverized. The existing surface will repave them with 3 to 5 inches of hot mix asphalt. Occasionally, on the right circumstances, we add paved shoulder. That helps provide a transition for vehicles that wander over the white line, helps keep the edge of the pavement intact from people running off, provides a little space for walkers and bicyclists. Painting, new signing, drainage work are all done along with these projects. Milling and paving is only one of the activities we use. We also do crack filling where the cracks are routed and filled with liquid asphalt. We do chip sealing work where we apply an emulsion and then a layer of aggregate that provides a little surface that'll last 6 to 8 years. Each time a new pavement is installed, they settle, they shift, they start to age a little bit. There are going to be cracks. They all crack. Those cracks have to be filled. It's a must to keep the water and the freeze-thaw away from the base. The condition of the base on these roads is usually the kind of the key to what the extent of maintenance needs to be. We're going to see cracks. We're going to see edge cracks. You're going to see some minor wheel rutting. On those conditions, the base is still fairly usable. Chances are it hasn't gotten real out of shape. It's still bearing the load, and we can do a mill and pave where without doing a total reconstruction. It's much more cost efficient. Full reconstruction, though, is something we do when the pavements are in such bad shape and it's apparent the subbase is no longer supportive. Where if you were to spend money to do a mill and surface on a road that needs to be reconstructed, it wouldn't last very long and it really isn't a good expenditure of funds. Putting a new surface on an unstable base just doesn't make sense financially. There are times when the pavements, especially older roads, where the traffic volumes and the need to do a capacity expansion is such where we need to look at that. Some of our older pavements, and this is statewide, were originally designed and constructed with more narrow lanes. They followed the old wagon trails over the hills, the curves, tried to avoid somebody's land or trees. And now that traffic has built up and the need to, let's say, go quicker, the speeds have increased, pavements like that need to be improved at some point in time, a capacity expansion or a safety expansion. We use a PACER rating system, which is Pavement Surface Evaluation and Rating process put together by the state a number of years ago. We take a look at our pavements on a every 2-year cycle to see what types of condition they're in and then what types of maintenance we can do to to bring them back up to speed. This year, the department is requesting $3.8 million for those projects. That is a lot of money. It's a big chunk. However, this is the type of work that at some point does need to be done. It typically goes up each year, although I am hopeful of seeing good asphalt prices this year because of the oil prices, obviously. We haven't taken bids, but hopefully we can yield a little better asphalt price as we go forward. If we can get about 20 years additional life from these pavements, that keeps us right about on track with the number of highway miles we have. Doesn't always hold true. Some of them start to deteriorate a little more than others, a little more quickly than others. Just depends on the type of load, how they were built, what type of surface they have under them, what type of subsurface, the base materials, all those types of things. This project has been discussed with the Highway and Personnel Finance Committees, and I'm presenting it to you tonight, and hopefully we'll come back with a resolution in March to get the money funded to do the work. Can I answer any questions?
Supervisor Eisen.
Yes, this is for Mr. Winters and also for our Finance Director, Mr. Ornstein. With the expectation of the $4.3 million, you'll be asking for that full amount to be borrowed in the immediate future. Is that correct?
Actually, $3.8 million, and yes, we would ask for that to be made available to the Highway Department either through bonding or unused funds.
What is the current interest rate that's in the market today? Because I know that the numbers have been really, really low.
I don't know at this point. I haven't checked lately.
Under 2%?
Probably very close to that. On a 10-year borrowing, it might be a little bit higher than that. Without actually looking, though, I can't say for certain.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have some information in the packets. In our packet, you were given rules for the appropriate use of technology during board and committee meetings, and county issued electronics device usage from the information systems. Does anybody have any questions for it? We have the brainstorms of that outfit here. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple questions. First question, am I to presume that next month we'll be voting on proposed rules?
Yes.
And my second question is, and I brought this up at the IS committee, is what will be the policy or rule about the flow of information to supervisors who are not on committees that they want information from? And I've talked to a number of different people and I don't really get a straight answer. So if I wanted to go to a committee I'm not on, for example, let's say tomorrow, property facilities, who would I contact and how do you ensure that I get the same information supporting documentation as one department head called it that the committee members get?
Well, I think when you see the meeting posted, if you want that information, I would contact that department and get it.
And that would assure that I'll get it, or am I going to get the same answer I used to get? You get what?
I would think that you have every right to get it.
Okay.
Supervisor Wingman.
Mr. Chairman, yesterday this came to the Judiciary Committee, and we had a vigorous discussion, and at the end of it, Supervisor Smith moved approval of these rules, and it died for lack of a second. There was a great deal of concern. I'll address mine first. There's two questions. One is, who authorized this? Somebody from the county went out and said, we have to buy these or we need these? Or did some salesman come to us and say, here's what we'd like to offer you? In either case, shouldn't there have been an RFP to compare, contrast what issues? We don't know. One of our guests at the meeting yesterday suggested that they don't even use these objects in schools anymore, higher degree of difficulty, I guess. It's also was sold as a method to save money. Now, I understand that. That sounds right, but I'm not sure how you can measure money with, like for instance, at the meeting tonight, I like looking back and forth at these various resolutions, look what's coming ahead. I don't want to be flipping back and forth on some screen. And also, I reconfirmed with Mr. Smith, my friend, tonight that this didn't really come from him anyway, that this whole idea was started by former Supervisor Jeff Hall, who we all know was a number one techie, and that's justified by the job he has now with Google. He was really into this, so for him it was easy. But I think there are many of us who don't feel comfortable with these devices. We have had no input into what kind of device we have. Are we going to be mandated according to the rules? It uses the word I haven't seen since Joe McCarthy hearings, censure. If you press the wrong button, you risk censure. What does that mean? We have to stand then outside and press the I and on our electronic devices. We're going to have to get the name for these things too. Anyway, all those sorts of concerns. This seems to be, to me, I'll speak just for me, a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. And the thing that came up yesterday at a meeting repeatedly was, maybe this is putting the cart before the horse. And no, I am not a buggy whip salesman or trying to, live in the past. I understand without my support, technology is still going to go ahead. I don't like it, but I know I have to deal with it. But for now, I would say this isn't something we need to get into.
Okay, first, everybody, there are certain people that don't understand the iPad and stuff. They won't be asked to use it. You will be given that same information on a paper form if you want it until we get squared away with it. That's how that will work. Patty, I would like you to tell us, give us some information on how we purchase these.
Wait a minute, they're already purchased.
The idea of giving the board this technology has been under consideration for greater than a year. I'm not sure about the Jeff Hall initiation, but he probably would be all for it. But it's been driven by both interest by the chairman of the board to save money via less paper, less postage with the large packets that are monthly for this meeting, and then it could expand if other committees use it. And the IS committee has put a lot of work into considering what other agencies are doing this and drafting the rules that you see. And I would say the rules are basically common sense for public meetings, open records, kind of things. And the censure thing is for lack of better consequence. If there are abuses of the devices, the censure would be turning off your county account or your email, and that's strictly if there's abuses and there's not much else we can do for a consequence.
Did I misunderstand? Have these devices already been purchased?
These are not purchased, okay. Not at all. We're taking the steps to define the benefits of it. We would definitely get pricing. The model was selected based on input from other agencies, based on the IS recommendation related to security. It's an easier device, or I'll say an easier tablet to go with an iPad for security reasons and for trainability. I think it would be easier for you guys to pick up. So these are the steps we're starting to take, and we would move on then with the training requirements. What kind of needs do we have to get you guys on board? and go forward with the savings.
Could I ask, with respect to training, does this mean we sit down with a fifth grader and they explain this to us, or?
That would probably work.
Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess first and foremost, in regards to the rules, it seems like an awful lot of rules. I guess I'll start at the bottom on number 15. Should a county board supervisor choose to utilize a personally owned device in place of a county-issued device, the supervisor shall follow Winnebago County BYOD, bring your own device use procedures. Are those not part of the rules? The bring your own device procedures? I'm not sure that I saw.
Those are separate. There's a separate sheet related to BYOD, and I don't think it was provided, but it's online.
Okay, so there's more rules than just these page and 2/3 of rules that are in front of us. I mean, I already have an electronic device that I could do that on, so probably half of us here already have a device too that we wouldn't need necessarily a tablet or something. In regards to page 2, number 1B, devices shall not be used during board and committee meetings to surf the web, except as stated in paragraph 1A above, email, engage in instant or text messaging or any kind or of any kind, or to engage in non-county related business. Who's going to police this?
Somebody from the IS committee want to join in? Supervisor Hardy,
yeah, I can address a number of these points. If I can just take a step backwards, the Information Systems Committee has been discussing a paperless county board it's been on the agenda for a number of, I guess, years at this point. The issue became urgent when this county board approved a budget that included the purchase of tablets for county board supervisors. Personally, I would claim that our committee was not quite ready for that, because we felt that before you can issue iPads to county board supervisors as part of a paperless county board plan, you need to have certain types of rules in place regarding who owns the devices, how are the devices going to be managed, are they going to be secure. So what we had done, actually going back again to last year, we had some supervisors from Door County, which does have a 100% paperless county board in place. We had them come and present to us about the benefits that they saw, some of the obstacles that they ran into, and we took that information to help guide us in what types of things that we felt we needed to see in place before we could have tablets issued for this county board. There's two separate documents, because the one regarding the appropriate use of technology is really irregardless as to whether we issue county-owned tablets to county board supervisors. This is the kind of thing that deals with walking quorums, that if we're in a county board meeting, I shouldn't be texting with another supervisor about, hey, you should bring this up, you should bring this up. That's basically creating an underlying level of communication that is essentially unethical, if not illegal, in terms of state law regarding how we communicate as a board. So this particular section about appropriate use of technology is something that we could adopt regardless of whether we adopt tablets issued by the county. And this is the kind of thing that we could stick in our board rules, the same way we have, do we have a rule about what happens if your cell phone goes off during a meeting? It's the same type of a thing. In terms of policing, of course, nobody's hanging over your shoulder to see what you're doing on your device during a meeting. If you've seen people playing solitaire on their devices during meetings already, sure, you have a right to complain. It would be the same type of a situation. So I don't think there's anything extraordinary going on with that. The other rule, though, which specifically addresses the county-issued electronic device, was us trying to play catch-up with the fact that this board approved that budget line in the budget last October. That was approved without any sense of whether these would be just given to county board supervisors to do whatever you want with, or whether they would be owned by the county. And that's what this attempted to address based on the Door County's policy and based on our numerous meetings discussing what would be the most flexible, the easiest way, what would be the easiest for information systems to handle. So that's what this attempted to define. But I think that some people are right that we have not had that greater discussion about whether this board as a whole wants to move to a paperless business model. And that conversation hasn't happened, and I guess this is the beginning of that conversation. So I guess I'll leave it at that, and I hope that addressed some of these questions, but I think the discussion needs to continue. I will add one more thing. One of the things that we had discussed at Information Systems Committee was the potential of rolling this out in phases. In other words, having half the board who are willing to adopt this take on tablets issued by the county in the first year, and then in the second year you could roll out another round for the rest of the supervisors. So that would be another thing to consider. So thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the answer to the question B is we're going to have more rules that won't necessarily be policed or enforced by anybody. I'm not sure that that's a good thing. Number 2A, all communications between supervisors during a county board or committee meeting shall be completely verbally. And in B we have a supervisor shall not engage in any email, instant messaging, or text messaging. What's the difference? If people are communicating, they're communicating. We've had people in this boardroom communicating via text message previously that didn't get policed. And I'm wondering if there are any active or court cases that have been decided that necessarily differentiate between verbally communicated messaging, which happens in this chamber all the time, and email, instant messaging, or text messaging. Do we know that?
I think it's a public record definition. If you're not communicating verbally, it's not, the citizens don't know what's being discussed. It's just the definition of open records, I think.
So if Mr. Fari and I are having a conversation between the two of us, the public is still not going to know what we're saying. Even though it's held we're talking in a public chamber during a public meeting, they're still not going to know. Are there any court cases that differentiate between verbally spoken words and email, instant messaging, or text messaging in a public chamber?
I'll ask our corporation counsel.
I just wonder if we're trying to set a precedent with...
No, I don't think there are any... I'm not aware right off the top of my head, Mr. Haig, of any cases. But here's the thing. First of all, I don't know if... those things, I didn't write them and I haven't seen them. I don't know if they said they're rules. I think, to be honest with you, I think they're more suggestions with regard to operation and an outline of what you should operate under. It really doesn't matter if you have a tablet in front of you or your cell phone or a piece of paper. You could turn, as you said, to Mr. Fari and write him a note on a piece of paper, and that's not necessarily illegal. What is illegal is if you had, a good portion of the board that you were texting at the same time and basically conducting a meeting within a meeting. That could get you into trouble. I think a lot of these things that are there, and Patty Francoeur can comment on that, but these are more suggestions with regard to operating this to keep you out of trouble or keep people out of trouble. You have to realize that, if you turn to Mr. Fari and wrote a note on a piece of paper to him and then tore it up, there's probably not a whole lot anybody can do about it. Once you put something on email it's there, and anything that you write on email that you're using for a public purpose, that becomes an open record, and it's subject to, if somebody asks for it from the public, it's subject to discovery. So if you do go to a system like this, and I'm not telling you to do it or not to do it. I know it's in your budget, but you folks as board members are ultimately going to make that decision. If you are using it for, that tablet's going to become something that's going to be subject to an open records search if somebody from the public wanted to see it. So I think a lot of the stuff that Ms. Francoeur had on there, or that the committee put on there, was really more suggestion and not a rule, as you said, that it would be policed or whatever, or you would get into trouble if you didn't follow it. But these are more suggestions with regard to operating the system and to keep people out of trouble, and to keep people out of unintended trouble, because people may not know that this could cause a problem. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but...
Thank you. I just wanted to say that the rules that I was provided at the Judiciary and Public Safety meeting yesterday does say on both pages, board rules, and what I see in our packet says proposed rules. So they may or may not be suggestions, but I think coming from this committee, they are proposed as rules, so...
Yeah, I mean, if they're rules for the county board, they're going to have to be adopted as rules, just like you have rules as far as when your meetings start and how you operate your meetings. Again, those weren't shown to me before they were distributed or anything, but I really think the intent was more as a suggestion or an operating parameter with regard to how you should operate or use the thing. Again, as you said, nobody's going to come around with a uniform on and police you for playing video games at a meeting, or looking at cartoons at a meeting, or playing solitaire or whatever. People just aren't going to do that, and ultimately, the judge of whether you're doing something wrong or not with regard to that tablet, other than for the open records laws that I talked about, are going to be the people that elect you.
Certainly understand that, and that's a good point. I think the other side of the policing is certainly you can identify a trail of cookies, so you could do it internally. You could get on these remotely and find out where each supervisor's been surfing electronically, and you could check times to see whether it's during a board meeting or not. So you don't necessarily have to have somebody standing over your shoulder policing. You can also do that digitally.
Oh, and that's what I indicated to you, that once you get these, anything you put on them is probably going to be subject to the open records law.
Absolutely. So, I mean, before we get these, I think there should have been an opportunity for Corporation Counsel to see these, whether or not, whether they're suggestions or proposed rules.
I think, just an aside, I think that's ultimately up to you as a body, what you want to do with those. But I think the intent in listening to you talk and listening to Ms. Francoeur talk is they weren't really rules, they were more suggestions with regard to how you operate those, and being made to keep people out of trouble and keep the board out of trouble.
Thank you. And the comment was made earlier about this is maybe the beginning of the discussion about electronic devices. Perhaps the rules should be the end of that discussion. Perhaps if we want to initiate a discussion about going digital or going paperless, that should be a discussion about RFP or what is proposed might be purchased, and if the board wants to go forward and purchase something. So I don't think that this is the place to start. I think that this is the place to end. And if we want to purchase these, maybe that's the better notion of where to start in this debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. One, I don't see anything wrong with any of these rules. When I was in the business world and we were handed company-owned computers, company-owned cell phones, anything that the company owned, we got rules just like this. And like the Corporation Counsel said, they weren't following us in the motel room to see where we're surfing. This is just a piece of paper that's saying there are parameters in how to use these things. Second thing is, I don't know why it's so difficult to drag some of these people in the 21st century. I mean, you don't like it, you don't have to use it. But to say to everybody who wants to use it, well, because I don't like it, you're not going to use it, is really not right. And whose responsibility is it to bring this forward to the board for vote as a resolution? Where's that going to come from?
Well, it started here now for a general discussion. I mean, there was money put aside to do this. Now
But is there a committee
if we want-
responsible?
Huh?
Is there a committee responsible?
Well, I would eventually come from the IS committee.
Okay.
I mean, this is mainly just educational discussion to try to see what we're going to do.
Thank you.
Supervisor Farley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In full disclosure, I did have a discussion with Patty in regard to my question that I'm going to ask. But if the county board is going to absorb the cost of buying the product, in other words, the tablet or whatever you call this thing, are you also going to furnish us with internet service? A lot of us live in the country and we don't have cable, we don't have dish, we don't have all that stuff. So are we going to get the equal opportunity to receive it by giving us internet service?
I would say anytime you go to a meeting, like if you came into this room, you wanted to download something, it's here. When you went to McDonald's, when you went to Starbucks, there's all different places where you can download it from.
But my question is, if I want to receive the packet per board rules, I have to download it. Will I be able to do that in my home? And then that would require internet service.
Patty, can you help me out here?
That is correct. If you want to be able to do it in your home, you would need wireless internet service to use a tablet. And I don't know how to answer the providing it and paying for it, but I think that would be extending benefits beyond, I mean, why would we pay for that for one and not everybody then? So I don't know how that would be accomplished. Most other entities that I spoke with that are doing this, the supervisors had it at home or obtained it on their own. Just like for my department as well, I have employees that have to do stuff off-site, and there's nothing provided that way for us. I do stuff from home. Most of my staff does stuff off hours and from home, and that's not an option, and that's actually our job requirement.
Well, actually, it cost the county about $5 to send me this packet based on what I've noticed over the years. So what we would be doing there is shifting the cost from the county of that $5 to myself to download this on a wireless internet service. So now I'm paying for, I believe they call it gigabytes, additional usage of the wireless service to get what I used to be furnished as a county board supervisor for free. I mean, I don't know how many of us only have wireless service. I mean, that I don't know, but I certainly do. Yeah. So we need to factor that in, is what I'm saying.
I had all that service. Somebody hacked it the other day, and I couldn't. It sent out emails that I was in the Philippines and I needed $2,500.
Yeah, you got to. I agree. You got to watch it. Yeah, but I think it's something the IS department needs to evaluate and consider, because I don't know how many. I'm the only one that lives in the country with wireless service, but I'm sure there's more of us. You know, we don't have the same computer internet service as people that live in the cities and villages where they have, you know, Time Warner and all this other stuff. So please consider that when you go forward with this, is what I'm saying.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If my recollection is correct, it was last month that the county clerk obtained or handed out a survey for the supervisors to complete and return, which would express their level of achievement in the digital age. Has that survey been returned and evaluated? Are there answers for the level of the functioning for the supervisors on this digital question?
Yes, Patty, do you have that information, what the...
I do have them. I broke them out by the groupings. I didn't literally count them yet. It's amazingly split pretty equally between beginner, intermediate, and advanced. There's definitely a little bit more on the beginner side, but I was surprised at the division that was relatively equal across.
Well, I have to express a personal experience. I, by all means, are involved with internet, with laptops, with Androids. I coveted Jeff Hall next to me accessing the budget document at a time that we were in discussions. He inspired me to go ahead, and I've been on the Android for 2 years. But I quite frankly, with all of the adjusting to the digital ages and the new equipment, I still can't understand how to organize all of this information. I mean, I have binders with committee meetings and notes that I can make reference to. It's a laborious task, but if I wanted to find out what happened at a particular time, I can reconstruct that with enough effort. My level of achievement with a electronic device is so elementary, it's difficult for me to appreciate the ability to go forward and digest all the information that's going to be thrown at us, and also try to organize it in an electronic way, although I would love to do that. So I would share caution in proceeding with this effort, and certainly phasing it in, even at a smaller level, because I'm sure that there are a large number of our associates who haven't achieved the level that I've been involved in, and I'm struggling.
Supervisor Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up on a couple of questions, the Committee of Jurisdiction, in this case the Information Systems Committee, wrote these rules, but in order for them to be adopted as board rules, they go through judiciary. And Supervisor Wingren referenced that they were brought up at judiciary, but were not carried forward for lack of a second. But any board rule changes go through judiciary before they come to the county board, and then require a 2/3 approval, I believe. Secondly, in regards to internet access, if you never go to McDonald's once a month, all McDonald's have free wireless. All Starbucks have free wireless. Your public library has free wireless. These devices just notice it and flip on, and they'll give you what you need. They'll get you that internet access. Or every county board supervised, there's wireless in this room. There's wireless at the Coughlin Center. There's wireless at the Otter Street offices. So wireless is available. You don't have to purchase wireless for your home in order to access documents. However you get your email now, you'd be the same way. So I just wanted to follow up on those two questions. Thank you.
That's it. Supervisor Keel.
I'm on the IS committee. I thought I'd help follow up on a few things. The Supervisor Haig about more rules and policing. I think that was kind of covered. I think they could be considered suggestions, but just because you can't actively police something doesn't mean you don't want to guide folks in it. I teach at a middle school, and if stuff we can't police all the time was to be pulled off the rules because we can't police it, well, oh my gosh, yeah, I was called a few things this week. So, you can't catch all of it. I think this is good guidelines, especially for those of us who are new. Imagine these existed. You show up, it's nice to have a set of these suggestions, rules, or whatever you want to call them, to remind me that, yes, this is expected behavior. I think the corporate counsel makes a good point about open records. I see this as something where if I get elected and this is issued to me, I see this as a clean way to do research or answer emails on that device, even though that might seem a little clumpy to people who do everything on one device. But I find it a good clean break that if there is an open records request, I mean, think about it. When you're just doing Google, Yahoo, and doing some of that, worst case scenario, if they came after that and wanted your email, I mean, it's not uncommon to see people in walks of life have their Google or their Yahoo histories, checked into. So, I mean, the fact that we have all use the Winnebago County mail, and then if you have things on here where you're downloading a report or things from whatever for the job, I think it's a nice, clean way to have it. Mr. Ferry, the internet service thing, I understand that. I think Mr. Hardy he addressed that. I was going to say, but internet service, if wireless is one of these terms that's confusing people, it's not like we're in the rural electrification of the 1930s. If you get the internet at your house, I mean, that's all I buy. I don't get the cable and all that other stuff. Wireless just means that if you have the internet on a cable, I mean, all you have to do is, if you want, and you want to have it at your house, you buy an antenna that kind of throws it around on a signal. So it's not beyond the pale, but if you truly don't want to, buy internet service, you don't have to. There's all those other things. And then I heard some of the guys back here about going to McDonald's or whatever. We talked about phasing in. If there's somebody here who doesn't ever want to do this, I mean, there's nothing precluding the clerk having a certain group of people that continues to get paper, and there's nothing wrong with that. Whereas I might get it at home and say, hey, take me off all the mail list, I got my iPad. If there's something I'm like, there's an important document I want to have, I can print it out at home and bring it if I really feel that way. But I'm kind of getting out of the way. For those, like Supervisor Olson said, those who wish to can lead. And that leads me to one final long point. Where I work, we had an adoption of a lot of technology, and they did the same thing. They got a few of us were asked, hey, you're kind of good with this stuff. Would you lead and get a lot of the reluctant people to follow and show them what they can do? And like Mr. Eisen said, that's been tremendous where I work. Tweaked a few things, we changed platforms. It's really amazing. The issues we're dealing with today are like nothing compared to like 3 years ago. But we got to that point because people got comfortable, taught other people, and now it's good. Mr. Eisen, I appreciate where is all that, the overwhelmingness, but the beauty is that county website is really nice. It all is parked out there. They maintain it. And all your tablet would be is, I want to go look at the information committee minutes. I want to look at our minutes. I press a link. I mean, I've sent people links, and you wouldn't have to print binders and save binders if you didn't need to. So that comes with the mentor thing. So if this was adopted, I'd put my volunteer forward to work with other supervisors who had those issues. Because when I heard your concern, I thought, if I could talk to you for a half hour, we could show you how this really is a neat thing. So there's a couple of those issues. So I'm finished, but those are a couple of the issues we've talked about for the last few months. Thank you.
Supervisor Keller.
Supervisor Keller pretty much said what I was thinking about saying, was the fact that what I've been hearing tonight is that it will be optional. That if someone wants to continue to get paper, they can continue to get paper. And the people that are interested in having the use of the technology will use the technology. My only question then comes up from that is, I think the tablets are being sold on the fact that they're going to save money because we won't have to do all the printing and sending and mailing. So will we still be saving money if a small portion or a medium portion or 2/3 of the supervisors use it and the rest of the people still have to get the mailed papers? I mean, that's a question I'd like to have somebody look into and be able to address the board on.
I think you'd still save something if you reduce the number, the paper, the amount of paper, and the number that you have to mail. I think it just wouldn't be as cost justified as everyone, obviously. But I do still think there'd be a savings, and it would, be a great tool to make greater productivity, greater access to the documents.
Is there any way to look into the cost, maybe cost accounting of it, actually come up with some numbers that might convince some reluctant supervisors that we're saving money? That would just help sell the idea.
Sure, I think we did provide those. The postage and everything was provided. And the budget, if I can just add one more piece of info, the total amount budgeted covers software that you can take notes relatively easy on your, as far as highlighting or writing simple notes with a stylus pen or your finger. And then there's also going to be potentially software like a word processor and a spreadsheet and an email piece of software. So those tools will be part of the purchase as well if this goes forward. And this is a tablet, and generally a tablet is a touch device, but the budget also covers a keyboard, a literal physical keyboard, if you're interested in that as well.
I don't know, maybe those numbers were offered before I was on the board, but I have never actually seen any actual numbers as to what the savings would be.
Okay.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the Judiciary Committee meeting, I shared with the committee my notion that I have a suspicion that there are numbers of our peers that don't take the time to go through the packet and read the material. And I don't hesitate to say how much easier it is to skip with all of the information on that laptop just to pass that information by. So I have a great reservation going forward.
Supervisor Keel.
I would also offer, I don't think you'd get a cost savings like with any changeover of a program such as this right away, and I think that is to be noticed, like you said. One thing I would remind people is that these are very durable devices. There is trouble, but we do have a structure where one of the reasons iPads was suggested was, like as Patty Francoeur said, that they have some of those. The background exists that if 36 of us have these and somebody's having an issue, that there is a structure to back that up, and those other things. And Supervisor Eisen, I'd say for me it's just the opposite. Maybe it's just use and friendliness. The thing I like is I find I look at it more when I have it on the screen. And the other thing I like, and I've gotten kind of addicted to, is you can search any word immediately. If I'm looking where Paul Eisen's going to speak, I could type in Eisen and it finds everything, except the whole screen was yellow. But, just kidding. But, yeah. But, there's little things you just get used to. So, that's fine.
Supervisor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had anticipated a lot of discussion on this matter, and these are my personal thoughts. We had the committee as an ad hoc committee develop the rules. These were not developed by me. These were just presented by me. I fully agree with it. They're more guidelines than they are. I think we're all adults here, but we have to know the parameters to use this equipment. The other idea of having these rules ahead of time is several of us right now are using from phones to laptops, iPads during the meetings, and quite frequently pulling up different documents and information. And as long as it's all germane to what we're doing here as a county board members, there should be no problem. But as it had been mentioned, some people might want to play solitaire or something like that, so we're letting them know that this is not advisable. The idea of having the rules developed before we purchase the equipment, I still maintain is a good idea. The equipment is the usage, how we learn how to use it as we get it. But to know what we're going to do with it once we get it is nice to have it ahead of time. And that's my only comment. Thank you.
I've had people sitting in the back there already complain to me different times about board members that are playing games on their whatever, their iPad, not iPads, but their little phones and stuff like that. Okay, we will move on. Zoning reports and ordinances. Report number 1, Robert N. Wolf and Susan Wolf, Town of Winnebago. Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of report number 1.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to accept report number 1. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. A mandatory ordinance number 2, 0215, Yvonne Pomeranian Trust, Town of Oshkosh. Supervisor Egan.
I move for the approval of mandatory ordinance number 1.
Then moved and seconded to accept the mandatory ordinance number 2. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Pardon? On number 1? A mandatory ordinance number 1. Rezoning to A2 for tax parcel number 030 0258-02. Supervisor Egan.
That's the one we just done.
They said I didn't do it.
The report.
You did the report, but you didn't do the ordinance.
But you didn't do the ordinance.
So that's what I'm doing now.
Right.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we'll start over. Mandatory ordinance 020215, Yvonne Pomeranian, Town of Oshkosh. Supervisor Egan.
I'd like to pass this to Supervisor Gabbert.
I make a motion to accept the mandatory ordinance 020215.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Rezoning to M1 for tax parcel number 018-0359P. Supervisor Gabbert.
I make a motion to approve the rezoning of parcel 018-0359.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 18-22-015, commendation for Steve Bender. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Move for resolution number 118-2015.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 119-22-015.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. We are presenting commendations for employees of long service. I've mentioned this on the floor before, but isn't it in good taste, good order, to present the name of the employee who's retiring so that our public that watches the proceedings of the county board would know that resolution number 118-22-015 was for a commendation for Stephen Binder, who spent 23 years working for the Winnebago County Highway Department. Isn't it valuable enough to
could make mention of these individuals.
So which one was I on? 118? 118-22015, commendation for Stephen Binder. Stephen Binder was employed by the Winnebago County Highway Department for the past 23 years, and during that time has been a most conscientious and devoted county employee. Whereas Steve Binder has now retired from those duties, and it is appropriate for Winnebago County Board Supervisors to acknowledge his years of service. Now therefore be it resolved by the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors that a sincere appreciation and commendation be and is hereby extended to Steve Binder for his fine services as he has rendered to Winnebago County. Further be it resolved that the Winnebago County Clerk send a copy of this resolution to Steve Binder. The committee vote was 4-0. Resolution 118, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 119-22015, commendation for Kathleen Gear to Winnebago County Board of Supervisors. Whereas Kathleen Gear has been employed with the Parkview Health Center for the past 28 years, and during that time has been the most conscientious and devoted county employee, whereas Kathleen Gear is now retired from those duties and is appropriate for Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to acknowledge her for years of service. Now therefore be it resolved by the County Board of Supervisors that sincere appreciation and the commendation be hereby extended to Kathleen Gear for the fine service she has revered to Winnebago County. Be it further resolved that Winnebago County Clerk send a copy of this resolution to Kathleen Gear. Committee vote was 4-0. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution 120-2215. 015, request authority to apply for funds for maintenance of county-owned and leased snowmobile trails. Supervisor Knitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask for the approval of Resolution 120-22015.
Second. Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution 121-22015. Ordinance amend Exhibit C of Section 19.24, Parent 7 of the General Code of Winnebago County relating to Sunnyview Exposition Center rental fee schedule. Supervisor Knitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask for the approval of ordinance number 121-22015.
Been moved and seconded.
Rob Way is in the back here if anyone has any questions.
Supervisor Farley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would address my question to Supervisor Egan, if I might. In your evaluation of this, is this going to increase costs to the county fair?
Hopefully not. I'm not sure. But hopefully not, because what we actually do, excuse me, the fair is actually only charged, supposedly in their contract, is $1 plus all the utilities in that. So unless they come up with something new which hasn't passed, because at one time we weren't charged anything out there. So unless something comes up different, hopefully.
So you're not aware of anything in the document?
I am not aware, and I've asked Rob different times because our contract's coming up, and he said, as of now anyways, there's nothing new for us.
Could Rob, Mr. Wade, confirm that, please?
They wouldn't charge 4-H kids anything.
Pardon me?
They wouldn't be charging 4-H kids anything.
Okay, I just want to know that.
He's going to answer it.
All right.
Yes, Mr. Egan's right. It won't change the contract at all. There will be no charge.
This would not impact them. All right, thank you.
Supervisor Eisen.
I have the same concerns as Supervisor Farley. Thank you.
Chairman, I
Go ahead. Supervisor Egan.
I'd like to ask the committee or Rob, on this contract, my only concern is it's 25% down. Sometimes you've got new people that are coming in there, and they might not have that 25% down right away. They might have to wait to pay that afterwards. I think that's why some of the, especially smaller ones like your Mexican rodeos and that, I'm not sure, but why that $100 appealed to them quite a bit. And some of your larger horse shows and that, when you start asking for 25% down, is that going to affect any? And why are we taking 25% when we only used to just ask for $100? Why all of a sudden such a jump?
As pointed out in the resolution, for the past 12 years, we've had in place the $100 calendar deposit, and it has been sufficient in that we've seemed to be in a period where we've had steady returnees. Our clientele have been coming back. Hasn't raised any issue. Now lately, with the improvements made down at the Alliant Energy area with their equestrian center, we've lost two of our main shows, horse shows. And they've held their contracts, their $100 calendar deposits for several years, and they hold them again out for another 2 years. And basically, we can't do anything to recover that loss of revenue because we won't be able to rent out those spots. Again, they hold those $100 deposits. So this, in effect, is intended to discourage or at least encourage the clientele to think long and hard before just giving down a $100 deposit really doesn't do anything to deter that. So it's intended to up the ante on that. Now, what we're also doing is following what our competitors do, which would be Jefferson County, Fair Park. They each charge 50% down. Actually, we're going lighter than they do. So we're trying to get, I guess, going past what has always been a luxury and getting more with what the market is demanding.
Can you tell us, Rob, just approximately, like say 25% down on, I'm going to say a big show, I know you lost a big one there, but some other things on some of your bigger events, what is 25% amount to?
A larger show would be in the neighborhood of 10,000, and this would be about 2,500 for this 25% down.
Thank you.
All in favor, or we'll vote by our iPad. Vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove.
Okay.
So can he just say aye or no?
She's gonna put it back. Not you.
I use a laptop all the time, but my battery just went dead. It did, but I was on it all up here all afternoon. That is passed. Resolution number 122, 2015. Authorize the Sheriff's Department to accept the $5,000 Department of Homeland Security grant and apply to the purchase of a SWAT team ballistic shield. Supervisor Wingren.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of Resolution 122-2015.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, Supervisor Farley.
Question, if I might ask the sheriff. The shield you're replacing, tell me, what is the shield? I mean, is it?
It's
something you carry in front
yes,
of you?
yeah. It's
okay.
like you would see on TV. It's the hard Kevlar shield that's used to protect our deputies when they're moving towards an area of danger.
Oh, okay, I understand. Okay, thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 123-22015, authorize extension of lease agreement between Winnebago County and United States Department of Agriculture. Who's the vice chair on? Supervisor Wingren.
I move approval of Resolution 123-2-2015.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution 124-2-2015, execute lease agreement between Winnebago County and City of Oshkosh. Supervisor Wernke.
Move for Resolution 124-22015.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution 125.
Oh, we skipped it.
124-2215, execute.
No, David, we're not going to do that.
Which one?
125, so go to 126.
Okay. Resolution 126, authorize execution of airport lease between Catherine Stannis and Winnebago County. Supervisor Wernke.
I move for your approval of 126-22015.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution 127-2015, authorize execution of airport lease between Kevin Green and Winnebago County. Supervisor Wernke.
I move for your approval of Resolution 127-22015.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution 128-2215, approve amendments of Town of Inland zoning ordinance. Supervisor Egan.
That should go to Supervisor Farley.
Supervisor Farley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of Resolution 128-22015.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 129-2015, approve land transfer in Aviation Business Park from City of Oshkosh to Winnebago County. This is what the executive had explained when he was given his talk. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Supervisor Robel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that we adjourn until Tuesday, March 3rd for a special order of business meeting.
Thank you.